So you want to know how to gear quickly, fast, efficiently, whatever way you want to put it. Good news is we're going to be covering that in this video today. You will have to have completed the campaign at least. It is important that you do that. Also, after the campaign, that you've done the Deeds of the Champion, which are these purple quests here. These will introduce you into a lot of the systems that I'll be covering as part of this video. Hopefully, if you watched my last video as well, you've been keeping an eye on your season journey too. A lot of challenges in here for you to complete, which will give you these very powerful rewards. This is how you get your Resplendent Spark for crafting your first Uber Unique this season, so it's very important that you keep on top of this. And finally, that you've been keeping an eye on your seasonal rep grind. You do that here by talking with Crusader Diamond in Sarbenset. And there'll be a bunch of rewards here that you'll be able to get periodically by basically just killing things this season. But real quick, just before I get into the meat and potatoes of this guide, if you like this type of general content for Diablo as opposed to like specific build guides for the Barb, let me know by giving the video a like. And if you haven't already, I don't know, maybe subscribe. Really appreciate it. Anyways, let's get into it. To kick things off, and the first thing you're going to want to do before anything else, because this will set you up nicely for everything, is to find the seasonal content, the Realm Walkers. These will be on the map. You can find them. Usually it's like a green boss icon here. They're up very frequently, so there's almost always one or two up. And when you go to this location, there'll be a big ass dog walking around. You follow it, kill a bunch of enemies. It spawns when it sits down. You kick it in the ass, and then once it's dead, you go inside its portal. Inside, it's just basically a regular dungeon. There are some treasure rooms and stuff, which can be worth doing because it does drop quite a fair bit of gear and materials and stuff like that. But the main reason that we are in here is for the new seasonal consumable, the opals. These give you really powerful bonuses. Also, they give you a ton of rep as you kill monsters just anywhere else in the world. So very important for getting that rep grind done. But the one that we want is the one that increases our drop chance for boss summoning materials. These are otherwise pretty hard to get, and this will just have it so that they drop practically everywhere. This is huge because these are very important for later on. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do once you've got yourself a nice little stockpile of opals is head over to the nearest Helltide. These are the large red areas on the map. The premise of these is basically kill as many enemies as you can. They drop this currency called cinders that you can use to open chests within the area. These chests drop very specific types of loot. It'll tell you which kind of loot it's dropping. It'll be like helmets, boots, etc. You'll get a bunch of that type of item. Very good drop rates as well for legendaries, even occasionally ancestrals and uniques. Summoning materials, crafting materials, gold, and a Helltide specific summoning material called a Baleful Heart, which you'll definitely want to collect a few of. Another thing that you can do when you're in a Helltide is the public events. These are these sort of orange zones here that you see on the map around. You want to do these because, first of all, they're very rewarding. They drop a lot of cinders, gear, currency again. And also they drop opals, which can be used in any major town at the Purveyor of Curiosities, which is a vendor that you can gamble these with for specific types of gear. And the drop rates for this got boosted very, very high for this season. So it's a great way to get specific types of gear that you're after. And the final thing to do in the Helltide, and arguably the most valuable thing to do here, is the Blood Maiden. You can find her on the map with this icon. Also, there'll always be one of the Blood Maiden summoning spots as a bounty reward, so you definitely want to target that one. She drops a ton of cinders to open more chests, great gear, great materials for crafting, and also other boss summoning materials. One final side note for the Helltides, great thing about them is that they're open world content. If you're not the strongest yourself at the moment, you can party up or just follow powerful players around and then get the ball rolling that way, which I think is fantastic. Now, this next one is right quick. It's those bounties that I just mentioned before for the Tree of Whispers. You can get 5 offering from doing a Blood Maiden, but just generally, while in Helltides, a great thing to do is to go around and target some of these and hand these whispers in. Like everything else on this list, great gear, it's target farmable, loads of gold, crafting materials, and also probably one of the best sources of the Infernal Compass and boss summoning materials. Then after that, once you feel that you've got everything you need from the Helltides, the next step is going into the Infernal Hordes. And these are my favorite content in the game at the moment. You will need an Infernal Compass to actually get into a Horde. Now, these drop practically from absolutely every major objective completion in the game, but they're kind of rare. So we're talking things like boss kills, Whisper bounty hand-ins, or Nightmare dungeon completions. But Luckily for us, we grinded a bunch of those opals earlier on from the Realm Walker, and these increase the drop rate of Infernus compasses massively. So you should be getting them at a quite regular basis as long as you remember to keep that consumable up. Once you've done that, you pop one of these bad boys and you'll see a new location highlighted on the map for you to teleport to. Once you're in here, hordes are, again, one of my favorite content. It's like a survival type thing where you get waves of monsters come at you. Fantastic for XP. So if you're grinding for the Paragon levels, this is a very good place to be. Then at the end of each wave, you pick a boon or a bane. It kind of makes it a little bit harder, but you get more rewards the harder you make it for yourself. Quick pro tip, anything that says Hellborn or Elite, those are the ones to go for. Absolutely avoid Ether Lords or the Soul Spire ones like the Plague. They will just ruin your run, and you should be absolutely fine. Once completed, you'll then go through, kill some bosses, and then you'll get an absolute shit ton of loot. Very, very good loot from this. A lot of ancestrals, a lot of specific uniques here. There's a lot of build enabling uniques from this particular piece of content. The main one being for barbarians, for example. The third blade drops here, and you're definitely going to want that if you're playing barb, but also a lot for other classes as well. You will also get an insane amount of crafting materials from here as well. Overall, one of my favorite things to grind. Very, very, very rewarding. One last thing for those of you who did the hordes in the previous season to bear in mind is that the difficulty of the horde is now tied to the difficulty that you're in. Torment 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then the amount of waves is just the amount of waves that you have. Before, the waves and the difficulty were tied together. That's no longer the case. Just wanted to throw that out there. Now, once you've finished grinding a couple of Infernal Hordes, this is where I hope you've started to get a couple of tributes. These are a new consumable for the expansion, which will allow you to get very specific rewards from the Undercity, which is in Kurast. Now, there are a bunch of these, and there's ones that give you specific gear, like Ancestral Legendaries, Uniques, Runes, crafting materials, you name it, there's probably a tribute for it. But we're going to be hopefully focusing on the ones that give you gear, because that's what this video is about. But these are all generally very, very, very rewarding. There are a couple of things to remember about these. Again, they are tied to your torment difficulty, so the higher the better, but they are a time trial. You have to complete them in time, so don't try push the boat too far out on this one, because if you fail it, you lose it, which is going to really suck. Then another thing when doing tributes you want to remember that you have access to is the bargains. This will help you target farm specific types of loot, which is very, very useful. And then finally, there are three main archetypes of tributes. There are the regular ones that can be done solo or in a group. You then have Resolute, which are solo only, and then you have United, which are group only. So if it has the name in brackets, then that is a specific type of tribute. The United ones are very, very powerful. And now finally, the place where you're going to get a lot of the most powerful gear in the game, that is the Uber bosses. Now, there are a number of these bosses, and each of them have their own specific loot table. I'll leave a link down to an article that shows you which bosses drop what, so you can have a look ahead of time. But they're also, all of them, the best place to get mythic uniques, the most powerful items in the game. Now, to get to one of these bosses and to kill it for its juicy, juicy loot, you will need to follow a couple of steps. First is that you'll need the summoning materials. Now, if you've been using the opal that I mentioned before, you see big thing, all ties together, boys, all ties together. If you have any of them there, you can hover over it and they'll show you the best places to farm it, how many you'll need, and where the boss is. Now, some of these will actually drop from some of the other bosses in this ladder. So, for example, the Living Steel will summon Grigor, and then Grigor will drop the Shard of Agony for Doriel. There's a bit of a hierarchy to the bosses where, you know, you want to kill certain ones first and then move up the ladder, hence the name the ladder. And as you move further up this ladder, the likelihood of a mythic unique gets a little bit higher as well, which is the incentive behind doing bosses like Andariel and Doriel besides, you know, their specific loot tables. And my one and only tip for this is really just to party up. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. Your materials will last a lot longer because each player will rotate summoning the boss. So for every one time you do it, you should get 4 kills. Other than that, could be a lot easier to kill because one person in the group will more than likely just one-shot it. And with that, we're pretty much at the end of the road. At this point, what you want to do is basically cycle through all of these different types of content to sustain a loop of being able to summon bosses, masterwork your gear, and getting new gear in. As you play it more, you'll learn what each one is best for, and then you'll be able to go there when you are lacking in that particular thing. For example, the Hordes are really good for grinding masterwork materials. Other than that, don't forget it comes down to RNG. A lot of the time, you know, you will just kind of have to put some hours in to get good gear, but you will get there eventually. And don't forget, it's not the be-all and end-all. I actually enjoy the gearing, the early leveling and all that part of the game a lot more myself. So don't be in a rush to get to the end game. Enjoy the process. And again, if you liked the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I definitely didn't take 45 minutes to record this 10-minute video. Goodbye. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Love you, editor. Hello.